The coffin was white with gold handles. Inside lay her sister, cold and beautiful, even in death. But standing beside that coffin was the man Amara never thought she would have to face again. Her brother-in-law, David Okoro, tall, handsome, grief written across his face like poetry. Everyone whispered about how much he loved his wife, how devoted he was, how broken he looked now. But Amara knew something they didn't. She knew the bruises her sister used to hide under long sleeves. The tears Ngozi cried into the phone at midnight. The way her voice shook when she said, "He's not who people think he is." And now, 3 days after the funeral, Amara sat across from her father in their small sitting room in Enugu, listening to words that made her blood run cold. "You will marry David." Amara blinked. "Papa, what are you saying?" Her father didn't look at her. His hands were folded tightly in front of him. His face was hard, the way it always was when he had made a decision no one was allowed to challenge. "David came to me this morning. He asked for your hand in marriage." "Papa, Ngozi just died." "I know that. She was buried 3 days ago." "I know that too." Amara stood up, her chest tight. "Then how can you even think? Sit down." His voice was sharp, final. She sat. Her father leaned forward. "David is a good man. He has money. He has a name. He loved your sister. And now he wants to honor her memory by taking care of her family, by marrying you." Amara felt like the room was spinning. "Papa, I don't want to marry him." "What you want doesn't matter." "Papa, your sister left 2 children behind, Chinedu and Adana. Those children need a mother. David needs a wife. And you, Amara, you need to stop being selfish." The words hit her like stones. Selfish. Because she didn't want to marry the man her sister feared. Because she didn't want to sleep in the bed where her sister had wept. Because she wanted her own life, her own choices, her own future. But none of that mattered. Her father stood up. "The introduction is next week. Start preparing." And just like that, her life was no longer hers. Let's see what happened next. Comment where you are watching from and the time you are seeing this video below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Amara didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, remembering the last conversation she had with Ngozi. It was 2 weeks before her sister died, and Ngozi had called her late at night, her voice barely above a whisper. "Amara, if anything happens to me, don't trust him." "Don't trust who, David?" "Promise me. Don't let anyone force you near him. He's not what he pretends to be." "Ngozi, you're scaring me. What are you talking about?" But before her sister could answer, the line went dead. Amara tried calling back. No answer. She sent messages. Nothing. The next time she heard from home, Ngozi was in the hospital. Critical condition. Internal bleeding. They said she fell down the stairs, but Amara didn't believe it. And now she was being forced to marry the man who might have killed her. The traditional introduction happened fast. Too fast. David arrived with his family, smiling, gracious, playing the role of the humble widower seeking companionship. He brought gifts. He spoke softly. And he even held Amara's hand gently when her father introduced them. "Thank you for accepting me," he whispered. Amara said nothing. Inside, her stomach twisted with fear and rage. The wedding followed 2 weeks later. Small, quiet, no dancing, no celebration, just vows spoken in a room full of people who thought they were witnessing an act of love. But Amara knew better. When she stepped into David's house that night, the house where her sister had lived and died, she felt like she was walking into a tomb. Everything was the same. The furniture, the curtains, even the smell. David led her to the bedroom, the same bedroom he had shared with Ngozi. "You can change anything you want," he said, his voice soft. "I want you to feel at home." But Amara didn't feel at home. She felt like a prisoner. That first night, David didn't touch her, and he slept on one side of the bed, she on the other, a wall of silence between them. But Amara didn't sleep. She lay there, eyes open, listening to his breathing, wondering what kind of man he really was, and whether she would survive long enough to find out. The days that followed were strange. David was polite, gentle. He spoke to her kindly. He didn't raise his voice. He even helped with the children, Chinedu and Adana, who clung to Amara like she was the only light in their dark world. But something was wrong. Amara felt it in the way the house seemed to hold its breath. In the way the housemaid, Blessing, avoided eye contact. In the way David's phone rang at odd hours, and he always stepped outside to answer. One evening, while David was out, Amara went into his study. She didn't know what she was looking for, maybe evidence, or maybe answers, maybe just confirmation that her instincts weren't lying. She opened drawers quietly, papers, files, old receipts, nothing unusual. Then she found it, a locked metal box at the back of the bottom drawer. Her heart pounded. She tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. She looked around and spotted a small key taped under the desk. Her hands shook as she peeled it off and unlocked the box. Inside were documents, bank statements, transfer receipts, and a stack of photos. Photos of Ngozi, but not normal photos. These were surveillance pictures. Ngozi at the market, Ngozi at the hospital, Ngozi talking to a man Amara didn't recognize. Amara's blood went cold. Why would David have surveillance photos of his own wife? Then she saw something else. A handwritten note clipped to one of the photos. "She knows too much. Handle it." Amara's breath caught in her throat. Before she could process it, she heard the front door open. David was back. She stuffed everything back into the box, locked it, and hurried out of the study, her heart hammering in her chest. That night, David smiled at her over dinner. "You seem quiet," he said. Amara forced herself to smile back. Just tired, but inside, every nerve in her body was screaming, "Run!" The next morning, Amara woke up to find Blessing, the housemaid, packing her bags. "Where are you going?" Amara asked. Blessing didn't look at her. "I'm leaving, Ma." "Why?" "I can't stay here anymore." Amara stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Blessing, please, tell me what's going on." The girl hesitated, her eyes darting toward the door. Then in a rush, she whispered, "Your sister didn't fall down the stairs." Amara's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I was here that night. I heard them fighting. She found something bad. She threatened to go to the police. And then—" Blessing's voice broke. "And then I heard her scream, and a loud crash, and silence." Amara grabbed her arm. "Are you saying David pushed her?" Blessing pulled away, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't see it. But I know what I heard, and I know he's not who people think he is." Before Amara could respond, David appeared in the doorway. "Blessing," he said calmly. "Are you leaving?" The girl nodded quickly, grabbed her bag, and rushed out without another word. David turned to Amara, his expression unreadable. "She talks too much," he said softly. Then he smiled and walked away. Amara knew she was in danger, and she couldn't go to her father. He would never believe her. He had already made it clear that David was untouchable. She couldn't go to the police. David had connections, money, power. So she did the only thing she could. She started watching him, every move, every conversation, every late-night phone call. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth began to emerge. David wasn't just a businessman. He was involved in something dark, something illegal, money laundering, fraud, and worse. Ngozi had found out, and she had paid for it with her life. Now, Amara was living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, trapped in the same lie. But she wasn't Ngozi. She wasn't going to be silent. She wasn't going to be a victim. And she wasn't going to let him get away with it. One night, while David was asleep, Amara snuck back into the study. This time, she took photos of everything, every document, every receipt, every piece of evidence she could find. She sent them to a lawyer she trusted, a woman who had once helped her with school paperwork. "Keep these safe," Amara wrote. "If anything happens to me, take them to the police." Then she waited. Days passed. David grew more suspicious. He started watching her the way she had been watching him. "You've been acting strange," he said one evening. "I'm fine," Amara lied. "Are you sure?" She met his eyes. "Yes." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, but this time the smile didn't reach his eyes. That night, Amara woke up to the sound of footsteps. She opened her eyes slowly. David was standing at the foot of the bed, staring at her in the dark. "I know what you've been doing," he said, quietly. Amara's heart raced.
I don't know what you're talking about." He stepped closer. "You've been going through my things, asking questions, sending photos." She sat up slowly, her pulse pounding in her ears. "David, you should have stayed quiet, Amara, just like I told your sister." Terror shot through her. "You killed her." He didn't deny it. "She was going to ruin everything," he said, his voice calm, detached. "I couldn't let that happen." Amara's throat tightened. "And now, what are you going to do to me?" David tilted his head, as if considering. "That depends on you." Before he could move, the sound of sirens filled the air. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows. David's face changed. "What did you do?" Amara stood up, her voice steady for the first time in weeks. "I did what Ngozi couldn't. I told the truth." The front door burst open. "Police! Nobody move!" David tried to run, but it was too late. They tackled him to the ground, cuffed him, dragged him out while he screamed and fought. Amara stood in the doorway, watching, her whole body shaking. It was over. 3 months later, Amara sat in court and watched as David Okoro was sentenced to life in prison for murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The children, Chinedu and Adana, were placed in her care. Her father never apologized, but he never tried to control her again either. Amara moved into a small house in town, started a new life, a quiet life. And every night, before she went to sleep, she whispered the same words. "I did it, Ngozi. I made him pay." And somewhere, in the wind, in the silence, in the peace that finally came, Amara felt her sister's hand on her shoulder, whispering back, "Thank you."